In this video, we present a simple and exciting mechanic for solo role-playing that we are calling Minute by Minute, a solo RPG engine. Ta-da! Hello gamers, Matthew here from Grey Army Gaming in lovely southern Sweden. If you are like me and you sometimes find yourself getting bogged down or getting stuck in your solo sessions, this mechanic is going to be a great tool for you to increase tension and excitement into your solo role-playing sessions. Now, this mechanic is based upon two clocks. The first clock is going to be our standard timer clock, and we will be using 1 minute as our unit of time. And the other clock is going to be a countdown clock, which means with every successive action, we will be coming one step closer to a particular event occurring. I'll explain more what that means in a second. So basically, we have these two different elements that are involved to try to increase tension in our solo-playing sessions. Let's go ahead now and explain what you need in order to set up this system before we actually walk you through the structure of the system itself. Here's a picture of some of the potential supplies that you could use when running the minute-by-minute engine. You don't need to use all of these. You can use simpler versions of them. But what you are going to need are three things. You're going to need a timepiece, you're going to need some kind of oracle, and you're going to need some notes. First off, the timepiece. I'm going to be using my cell phone here because it very clearly marks a minute and I can see the seconds as it ticks down. However, if you want to get away from digital devices and your cell phone, I would highly recommend using sand timers. These are fantastic. You can find them in all sorts of different games. You can get them exactly a minute or approximately a minute. If it's close enough to a minute, that will work. So go ahead and pick up one of those if you'd rather use that than a cell phone. Second, you're going to need some kind of oracle in order to push along the narrative in your game. Now, oracles can be very complex or they can be very simple. It really doesn't matter as long as you're able to use the oracle in order to ask your questions. So, for example, I have some cards here that I might use. I have a D20 here, which is the Tower House Oracle die. This will give you some more complex answers, not just yes and no. I know a lot of people use D6s for oracles, and those are fantastic. Some people use fate dice for oracles. And also here's a very simple method, and that's just simply a coin. You can use a regular coin with heads and tails. I have a coin here that says yes and no on it, and I think I'm going to try to use this simple coin as a way to run my oracle answers when we actually play the game. Third and finally, we are going to need some paper and a pen to make notes and also to keep track of our oracle questions and answers. What I've done here is I've made a list starting with 15 down to 0 where I can write in for each minute that passes. I can write in the question that I asked in short form and also the oracle answer that I'm working with. Another important point is that the minute-by-minute engine is system-agnostic, which means that you can use any rule system that you are comfortable with or that you want in order to play your game and then allow the minute-by-minute engine to be the driving force underlying the narrative. Now, this means that you might have to change up a few things when you play your games. Some systems have a bit slower combat, for example, which means that maybe you want to pause this actual minute-by-minute mechanic while you are fighting combat, or perhaps you want to actually incorporate it into the combat, which means that every minute something exciting happens in the combat. That's also a way to push the narrative ahead in combat. That's entirely up to you, and you can feel free to tweak this as you need it based upon the role-playing system you're using. So how then do we actually use this minute-by-minute engine? I'm going to break this explanation into two parts. There are really two different ways you can use this. You can use it as part of a single arc, or you can use it as part of multiple arcs. Let's begin with the single arc. To begin, you're going to need to have a narrative background. So you need something like a setting, you need a character, you need an initial catalyst. You can use the resources for your role-playing game to get this set up. Once you do that, then go ahead and throw your character into the action. What you're going to do now is you're going to begin the clock starting at 1 minute, and you're going to now work yourself through the narrative, tell the narrative, and develop your character's story over the course of a minute. Eventually, that minute is going to end, and when that ends, then the time is up. You can immediately stop where you are in the narrative, and now it's time to ask your oracle question. And make the question relevant to what is happening in the moment, but also make it a question that has some high stakes. Now, what you're going to do then is you're going to seek an answer to the question that you asked. I'm going to be using this coin here, and it's yes or no. So, for example, I got the answer no. Now, what I'm going to do is try to interpret that result, no to that question, and make sure, once again, it's a question that has stakes, whether it's a yes or a no answer. And once I'm done interpreting that, go ahead and think for a second about what you should do with that question. And then when you're ready, go ahead and start off with the next minute of your timer and see how that in fact plays out, and carry on with this until you are finished. Now, when you start your game, you can decide if you want to have 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes. I would recommend anything between 5 and 10 minutes for a single arc game. That will give you a decent amount of oracle chances to actually make the narrative interesting. In order to play with multiple arcs, you will use the similar mechanic with a few little tweaks. Now, for example, I might want to have 3 major arcs in my game that are 10 minutes each. So what I will do is I will do the same exact thing. I'll set up my narrative background. I will begin the story, and I'll begin here now at 10 minutes and start my first minute and play down until I get to 0. Now, when I get to 0, that is the end of the first arc. And what I will do then is I will consult an oracle, whether it is something like a card or whether it is something like Mythic Game Master, and I will determine on an event table some major event happens. Or I could even sort of think through this myself and try to figure out the logic of my story. Maybe I can come up with my own major event. But otherwise, I can always consult a table for a major event that happens to mark the end of the first arc. When I'm done with that, then I begin my second arc. I go back to 10 minutes and play through every minute, stopping to ask an oracle question and getting an answer. At the end of that, when we get to 0, we have another major event, and then we would play our third and final 10 minutes of our multiple arc here, and we get to the end once again, then there will be a major event that will also be the conclusion of the entire narrative. Well, there you have it, folks. A quick run through of this simple idea, the minute-by-minute solo RPG engine. It really is as simple as this. We have a timer and we have a countdown, and these two things work together now to introduce tension and excitement into your solo RPG sessions. In a future video, I would actually like to play a session of this to show you how it can actually work. If you'd like to see that, please do give me a thumbs up, leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel. I will continue to make more content like this in the future. And most importantly, thank you for joining us here today at Gray Army Gaming for the future of solo role-playing.